Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be reading the last few chapters of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy by Dennis William Hauck. This is part 6, Modern Alchemy. Let's get started. People in all walks of life are discovering that the images and methods of alchemy have great meaning in the everyday world, and alchemy is synonymous in our culture with the idea of positive growth and change. Leaders in such diverse fields as business, psychology, and the arts are eager to apply the ancient operations of alchemy to release new creative energy into their work. Readers of the mega-selling Harry Potter series are spellbound by its magical characters and alchemical themes, which author J.K. Rowling freely admits she borrowed from alchemy books dating back over 500 years. Quantum physicists and scientists working in many other fields muse about the new alchemy, in which consciousness is seen as a force of nature, just as the alchemists believed. Chapter 21, Alchemy and Medicine. In this chapter, the search for the elixir of life, accumulating the energy of life, the cures of Paracelsus, the healing properties of metals. The obsession to change base metals into gold was not the only goal of the alchemists. They also sought to discover the panacea, or universal cure for all diseases. Also known as the elixir of life, alkahest, universal solvent, or azoth, universal remedy. This medicine would carry the power of the philosopher's stone to transmute and perfect or cure anything. Alchemists have always provided natural remedies for a variety of ailments because they possessed a powerful arsenal of herbs and compounds with knowledge of how they acted in the body. The life force. According to alchemists, health can be measured by how much life force is available in the body. This life energy has been called by different names in various traditions, and alchemists as far back as 3000 BCE have tried to understand the life force. The Egyptians associated it with the symbol of the Ankh, which is an ancient cipher for the morning star, or planet Venus. The Taoist alchemists named it Qi, the Hindus called it Prana, and the European alchemists associated it with the quintessence. In alchemical terms, the body is actually a special state of matter that might be best described as a spirit matter, to reflect the fact that it is animated matter infused with a life force of its own. Whatever it is called, the alchemists treated this special energy of life like a chemical ingredient. They believed they could separate it from living matter and actually add it to their experiments, just like any other chemical. In fact, many medieval alchemists actually claimed to have created little animated beings called homunculi by adding the life force ingredient into batches of chemicals. Alchemists believed that they could use this same separated energy to heal disease and rejuvenate the body, and therefore attempted to capture its essence in their elixirs. The life force is the source of the undifferentiated energy that is available for the transformations of cells and the life of the organs. In alchemy, the cells and organs are thought of as vessels of transformative energy in the body, and each organ is associated with a planet or astrological sign that describes this energy. Paracelsian medicine. Foremost among the alchemists devoted to healing was Philippus Areolus Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, otherwise known as Paracelsus, whom we've met in earlier chapters. Born in Switzerland in 1493, he entered the University of Basel at the age of 16 and studied alchemy, surgery, and medicine. He developed into an iconoclastic genius and is considered the first modern medical scientist. Paracelsus pioneered scores of medical techniques and is the founder of modern methods of antisepsis, wound treatments, and pharmacology. He was the first person to treat and understand the causes of symptoms of syphilis, and he treated epilepsy as a disease and not an affliction caused by demonic possession, as the church insisted. He also was the first person to consider environmental factors as the cause of disease, and noted that dust and vapors caused lung afflictions among miners. He introduced the use of opium narcotics, mineral compounds, and medicinal mercury preparations. Paracelsus taught that physicians should seek to find ways to stimulate the body to heal itself, and not use drastic measures that weaken the body, such as bloodletting. He felt that everything carried a divine image of its perfect state that could be assessed for healing. He called this divine inner principle the archeus, from the Greek word for ancient. The archeus is the oldest part of a substance's first matter that goes back to when it was just an ideal form or thought in the divine mind. It is the source of health that presides over the growth and well-being of every living thing. Paracelsus believed that everyone had an inner star or astral body that could be accessed to embody a state of perfect health and immortality. This new body was the source of a heavenly medicine beyond matter. From The Alchemist. Death, proclaimed Paracelsus, is the enemy of our body, of our health, the enemy of medicine, and of all natural things. God has made known this enemy to us, and also how and by what means we can escape it. For there is no disease against which there has not been created or will be discovered a medicine which cures and drives it away. So there is always one thing that can be placed over against another in this world. The divine power is the heavenly medicine, Paracelsus said. It accomplishes what no natural force can accomplish. There is no field on earth in which heavenly medicine grows or lies hidden, other than the resurrected flesh or the new body of a man. Only in the new body have all its words force and efficacy here on earth. This heavenly medicine works according to the will of the man of the new birth, for it does not operate in the mortal body, but only in the eternal body. Paracelsus is said to have discovered a miraculous remedy he called the azoth, which is an ancient name for the universal solvent or cure. In the work with metals, the azoth is the first principle or mercurial essence from which all the metals arose, and it has been described as a fiery water or electrical plasma that contains all the archetypal powers of the metals. As we saw in Chapter 19, the azoth drawing is a meditative emblem that attempts to systematically transform these powers within the alchemist. Paracelsus said his azoth acted like a universal remedy or alexipharmacon or counterpoison, and he kept it close at hand at all times. Strange confirmation of this comment comes in portraits of Paracelsus, commissioned in the early 16th century. In the paintings, the pommel of the sword of which Paracelsus rests his hand bears the inscription Azoth. Paracelsus was a tireless defender of his ideas. He traveled extensively and was ruthless in his attacks on charlatans and puffers. He died in 1541 in a small room at the White Horse Inn in Salzburg, Austria, and his body was buried nearby in St. Sebastian Cemetery. Sick and troubled people still visit the old church cemetery to seek a cure at his gravesite. Paracelsus, definitely more appreciated after his death than while he lived, became known both as the German Hermes and the father of modern medicine. Healing with metals. The azoth was thought to be a universal cure because it embodied all the archetypal energies of the metals. Alchemists believe these energies, which originated with the planets, governed our lives, relationships, and health in invisible ways. Over the centuries, these alchemists developed a powerful arsenal of metallic remedies. In the following figure, we see an alchemist preparing his medicine. All the necessary components are shown. Through the window, we witness the cosmic energies of the sun and moon coming together above, while the alchemist points to a plant from which he has isolated the essence, which is symbolized by the cipher for Mercury. The work is accomplished using the fire in his furnace to his right and the secret fire within him. This inner fire of the alchemist is symbolized by the lion, or Leo, devouring a serpent. The serpent is the classic symbol of the life force, which the alchemist sublimates and sacrifices for his medicine during the final stages of the work. Healing with lead. Although lead is poisonous, Alchemists have always tried to tame it and use it to tap into the Saturn energy that supports and enhances the structures of life. Saturn and lead rule the spleen, skeleton, and bone marrow. Oil of lead was one preparation made by alchemists that sought to capture the signatures of lead to heal. Made from the ashes of incinerated lead and powdered lead ore, or galena, which were dissolved in a strong vegetable alkali, this metallic solution was then fermented and a fiery red oil resulted. The astringent oil was rubbed into the skin to encourage the growth of bones after breaking, strengthen the skeleton, prevent the atrophy of muscles and connective tissue, and stimulate the spleen, as well as increase one's patience and stop visions and hallucinations. In the like cures like philosophy of homeopathy, lead is used to treat sclerosis, the hardening of bones and arteries, which is the hallmark of old age and a signature of lead. The homeopathic name of lead is plumbum metallicum. Healing with tin. Tin carries the preserving qualities of Jupiter. Flowers last longer in tin vases, and food has remained preserved in tin cans for over a century. Jupiter rules growth, the metabolic system, the liver, and the enrichment of the blood from food. In the Middle Ages, sick people were served food on a tin plate and drinks in a tin vessel to help them regenerate and recover their strength. Today, we know that tin acts as a bactericide and pesticide and plays an important role in the regeneration of skin and many of the structuring processes in the growth of cells in the body. The alchemists made an oil of tin that ruled the liver, cartilage, and muscles. They made the oil by incinerating metallic tin and dissolving the ashes in a strong vegetable alkali. The solution was then fermented, and the result was a black, tar-like substance they called the oil of tin. They used this oil to treat jaundice, hepatitis, cirrhosis, ovarian cysts, acne, water retention, and obesity. It was taken internally to cure parasites and relieve constipation, and it was also an antidote for mercury poisoning. The homeopathic form of tin is called stannum, a remedy which is said to strengthen and regenerate muscle and brain tissue. It is also a remedy for problems with the joints and connective tissue of ligaments and cartilage. Stannum is beneficial in liver disease and is used for congestion, hardening, encephalitis, and other illnesses where the balance of fluids is upset. The powers of Jupiter in tin are accessed in magical rituals and spells to promote abundance, prosperity, and success in business, attract what you desire, increase energy, and promote regeneration and rejuvenation. Amulets and talismans representing Jupiter are made of tin or tin-bearing pewter and charged with Jupiter's signatures. Jupiter's energy is said to be transmitted by lightning and the thunderbolt, which is the primary symbol used in rituals. For instance, in Tibetan Buddhist ceremonies, the dorje or thunderbolt is the stylized magical instrument or wand of Jupiterian powers. Healing with iron. Iron is a vital constituent of plant and animal life and the key component of hemoglobin in the blood. The Mars archetype in iron rules the blood, adrenal glands, genitals, and immune system. Mars' effects are stimulation and toning of the blood and immune system and make one more aware of the functions of the organs and the body. Oil of iron purifies the blood, heals wounds and cuts, soothes the gallbladder, stimulates the pancreas, helps ulcers, strengthens bone marrow, enhances instincts, cures impotency, and gives physical energy. The oil was produced from iron oxide ore. The black, sticky ore was first purified and made soluble, and then distilled slowly to release its thick, oily soul. It was considered one of the most powerful oils and was never used more than 40 days. Common homeopathic iron preparations are pure iron, or ferrum metallicum, and iron phosphate, or ferrum phosphoricum. Their therapeutic properties are stimulation and toning. Iron and steel are used in rituals, magical spells, talismans, and amulets to promote energy, strength, determination, willpower, and aggressiveness. They are also used in fertility rites, new beginnings and undertakings, and for speed, power, and courage. Iron ornaments or jewelry, such as the Iron Cross, are thought to carry these same characteristics. Healing with copper. The origin of the alchemist's glyph for copper and Venus is the Ankh, the symbol for the life force used by the Egyptians. The healing powers of copper metal are legendary. One of the most popular copper cures was the legendary powder of sympathy, a form of copper vitriol which was carried in European apothecaries for nearly 300 years. It was considered a miracle cure for wounds of all types and was endorsed by physicians throughout Europe. The odd thing about the powder of sympathy was that it never touched the patient. Blood and bandages from the wound were placed in a bowl of water containing a handful of copper vitriol powder, and the copper solution healed by sympathy. Believe it or not, patients immediately reported a cooling effect that diminished pain and resulted in rapid healing of the wound. We know that copper metal kills germs, fungi, and algae, and a copper coin dropped into a vase of flowers or aquarium will keep the water fresh longer. Florists sometimes provide copper salts in small plastic bags for this purpose. Many older hospitals still have copper doorknobs that were believed to help prevent the spread of disease. Thoth's tips. Copper metal can be applied directly to afflicted areas. To alleviate the symptoms of influenza, medieval physicians would prescribe rubbing the forehead with a piece of copper twice daily. Copper metal or powdered copper was also rubbed on sore joints to ease the pain of arthritis. Neuralgia and rheumatism, a tradition carried on today in the therapeutic wearing of copper bracelets. Copper plow tips do not dry out soil as iron plows do, and some farmers use fine copper fillings to charge the soil or produce more powerful compost. Experimenters have discovered that copper wire or tubing twisted into an open circle and placed around a tree or plant seems to enhance and prevent disease. The alchemists used coppered pans and cauldrons to infuse their extracts and tinctures with Venus energy, and were aware of the possible copper salts that could be formed. Using copper pans and utensils in the kitchen reduces the risk of passing germs onto food, and copper pans distribute heat evenly and cook foods faster and more thoroughly. However, copper combines readily with many substances and could form poisonous compounds with the wrong ingredients. For example, cooking salty foods in copper pans can cause a green corrosion called verdigris to form. Verdigris is copper acetate, which is a poisonous compound used to kill fungus. Copper has been shown to assist in arthritis, diabetes, pregnancy, and diseases of the kidneys and thyroid. It is also very helpful in healing wounds and trauma from accidents and surgery. Copper is abundant in the female sex organs, and some studies even suggest copper in the body is used up during sexual intercourse. Copper is also present in gallstones, which medieval physicians blamed on the lack of sexual activity. The alchemists believed that deficiencies of copper in the body caused thyroid problems, sexual dysfunction, poor circulation, cramps, aneurysms, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, and even mental illnesses. Some modern evidence suggests that copper deficiencies result in symptoms of aging such as gray hair, skin wrinkles, crow's feet, varicose veins, and saggy skin. Copper is a necessary chemical in venous blood that carries toxic substances to the excretory system. In sea creatures such as snails, mollusks, crabs, and squid, copper takes the place of iron as the chemical of the blood and respiration. Oil of copper was used to treat a wide variety of problems, including blood pressure abnormalities, low energy, impure blood, kidney and liver problems, skin infections, and heart problems. It was made from crushed copper ore and the ashes from incinerated copper metal, which were dissolved in a strong vegetable alkali, alchemically and fermented. The green oil was then separated out by distillation. Homeopathic copper is used for leg cramps and growing pains in general, as well as for convulsions, diabetes, and to stimulate the kidneys. Homeopaths use copper under the name cuprum metallicum. Copper is used in rituals, spells, and amulets to promote love, sensuality, and positive relationships of any kind. Copper is said to increase one's personal magnetism and attraction to the opposite sex, increase psychic abilities, and give insight into the plant kingdom and nature in general. In some Wiccan ceremonies, copper objects are used in ritual copulation ceremonies to ensure the fertility of the land. Healing with mercury. Despite its poisonous properties, mercury was the main ingredient in many Eastern remedies. In his travels through India, Marco Polo observed that many people drank a concoction of mercury and sulfur twice monthly from early childhood with no observable ill effects. They believed the drink gave them longevity. Some tantric alchemists in India still make metallic mercury in place of food as an elixir of life, although they caution that the body must be perfectly attuned and strengthened to tolerate the metal. In Indian alchemy, mercury is called rasa, which refers to the subtle essence that is the origin of all forms of matter. The chaotic first matter from which the universe sprang is called the rasasara, or sea of mercury, and the craft of alchemy is referred to as rasayana, or knowledge of mercury. A variety of mercury oils and elixirs have been created and used over the centuries. The most famous was the Rasayana oil of mercury, known as the Makara Dwaja oil. It was used as a rejuvenative tonic for the nervous system, lungs, liver, lymphatic system, and the brain. Makara Dwaja was used to treat paralysis, nervous disorders, tuberculosis, cancer, and immunodeficiencies. Tread carefully. Never handle or attempt to ingest mercury. Metallic mercury is a poisonous heavy metal and is considered very toxic. Do not expose yourself to open mercury containers, including small amounts such as broken thermometers, because the poisonous vapors are completely odorless. The mercury remedies described here are presented only for educational purposes and are not intended for consumption. The oil was also used to treat mental dullness, increase awareness and psychic powers, aid in developing verbal abilities, and enhance the powers of solar and lunar herbs. It is believed to relieve obsessions, fixed ideas, and deep depression. When combined with animal essences such as musk, the oil was considered a powerful sexual tonic. The average treatment routine with Makaradwaja, repeated on a yearly basis, lasts for about a month and usually works best in the coldest months of the year. The production of Makaradwaja oil is fascinating. It was made from purified medicinal mercury, which had been processed to absorb the healing essence of copper. This mercury was alchemically compounded to purified sulfur. The resulting substance was a bright red, exalted cinnabar. On being exposed several nights to the full moon, it resolved itself into a blood-like oil by attracting the universal spirit of the world in the form of corporified light. The most fantastic legends have grown up around members of the Bhairavi cult, who are worshippers of a wrathful form of Lord Shiva. They are rumored to live hundreds of years through the alchemical use of Makaradwaja and other mercury-based compounds. Some are said to have obtained immortality by freeing their minds and overcoming their innate addiction to time. Statues used in rituals in the Bhairavi cult display some of the side effects of using mercury compounds to extend life. They are statues of grotesquely mutated, other-dimensional beings who are supposed to be what successful candidates taking the mercury elixirs really look like. Western alchemists make an oil of mercury by distilling metallic mercury 7 times and quenching it each time in lime. Then it is dissolved in warm spirit of niter and the salt extracted and boiled in vinegar. The vinegar is distilled away, leaving the salt, which is washed in rainwater and fermented in pure grape alcohol. The alcohol is then distilled off, which leaves behind a fragrant oil of mercury. It is said to purify the blood, sweat, and urine, and cure all venereal diseases and many other illnesses. Only 4 or 5 drops are taken per day. Because of the dangers of mercury, silver replaces it in mercurial rituals and talismans. Magical spells invoking mercury archetypes deal with improving communication, trade, commerce, transport, progress, change, travel, mental clarity, learning, thinking, memorizing, test results, writing and speaking, and powers of persuasion. Healing with silver. Silver is a powerful antibacterial and has been used in healing since 4000 BCE. The Persians kept their healing waters in silver vessels to leach silver atoms into the solution. Egyptians used a form of silver wrap for wounds. Druids lined their drinking bottles with silver metal for a disinfectant. Medieval royalty held a substantially higher immunity to bacteria than a commoner, due to the fact that they dined with silverware, ate off silver plates, and drank from silver chalices. Even soldiers in World War I were known to swallow a whole silver dollar to ward off infection from wounds. Before refrigerators were invented, a silver coin was kept in milk to keep it from going sour. Today, hospitals put silver solution drops in newborn babies' eyes to prevent infection and use a cream of 1% silver sulfadiazine, known as Silvadine, as a highly effective treatment for burn patients. The therapeutic effects of the lunar metal are sedation, coolness, and moistness. Moon-ruled plants affect the subconscious mind and are useful for hypnosis, breaking bad habits, and dealing with unwanted desires. Lunar elixirs are used to reduce karma and also to rekindle an interest in family matters and relationships. They are said to increase sensitivity and imagination and a fondness for domestic pursuits in general. Medical astrology places the female reproductive organs, menstruation, the breasts, hormonal imbalances, the stomach, and the watery bodily fluids under the control of the moon. Oil of silver was used to treat disorders of the brain and cerebellum, reduce stress, balance emotions, improve memory, treat nervous disorders and epilepsy, and improve both melancholia and mania. The oil was also used as a physical purgative and mental purifier. Oil of silver is said to affect the subconscious mind, help one see into the past clearly, remove fears and blockages, allow one to unwind, produce homey feelings, give a feeling of grace and sensitivity, and enhance imagination. 2 popular homeopathic medicines derived from silver are argentum nitricum and argentum metallicum. A permanent suspension of microscopic silver particles in water is known as colloidal silver. It has been documented since 1887 as an effective antibiotic against anthrax spores, and silver solutions were regularly given in the early 20th century to knock out bacterial, viral, and fungal infections like pink eye, ringworm, bronchitis, bladder infections, hepatitis, yeast infections, allergies, sinusitis, and many more common ailments. In fact, colloidal silver was able to fight over 650 diseases without any known side effects or drug interactions. Tread carefully. Do not overuse silver colloids or compounds. Since 1975, the FDA has discouraged the use of silver colloids because intensive, long-term use of silver preparations can lead to aguria, a condition in which silver salts deposit in the skin, eyes, and internal organs. This results in the skin turning a permanent ashen gray color. Most cases of aguria occurred during the pre-antibiotic era, when silver was a common ingredient in nose drops and other over-the-counter preparations. Silver is used in rituals, magical spells, and talismans to invoke moon goddesses and in drawing down the moon ceremonies. The lunar forces are thought to control the female force, cycles, emotional and hormonal imbalances, the reflecting or neutralizing of negativity, dreams and intuition, psychic work, and psychic abilities. It is said wearing silver jewelry will improve fertility, emotional balance, and hormonal stability. Silver is also believed to improve the assimilation of food, which is why young children are traditionally given a silver fork and spoon to eat with. Water from silver chalices are thought to contain the lunar archetype and is used in rituals accordingly. Healing with gold. Gold has been used for both spiritual and medical purposes as far back as ancient Egypt. Over 5,000 years ago, the Egyptians used gold in dentistry and ingested it for mental, bodily, and spiritual purification. The ancients believed that gold in the body worked by stimulating the life force and raising the level of vibration in the body. In Alexandria, alchemists developed a powerful elixir known as liquid gold, which reportedly had the ability to restore youthful characteristics. In ancient Rome, gold salves were used for the treatment of skin ulcers, and gold leaf still plays an important role in the treatment of chronic skin ulcers. Paracelsus developed many highly successful medicines from metallic minerals, including gold. In medieval Europe, gold-coated pills and gold waters were extremely popular. The waters were known as aurum potable, or drinkable gold. Some were solutions of pure gold particles, while others contained no gold at all but were solution of sulfur compounds. Alchemists mix powdered gold into drinks to comfort sore limbs, and today it is widely used in the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. In the 1900s, surgeons regularly implanted a $5 gold piece under the skin near an inflamed joint, such as a knee or elbow. In China, peasants still cook their rice along with gold coin in order to help replenish gold in their bodies, and fancy Chinese restaurants put 24-karat gold leaf in their food preparations. Chrysotherapy, from the Greek word for gold, is the name given to healing with gold. The alchemists believed that gold represented the perfection of matter and that its presence in the body would enliven, rejuvenate, and cure a multitude of diseases. Gold never corrodes or even tarnishes, is completely non-toxic, and exhibits no interactions with other drugs. The atoms of gold spin in a right-handed direction, which is opposite to all other heavy metals. This makes it difficult for gold atoms to unite with other atoms to form compounds. Because gold is so inert, it is well tolerated in the human body. Physically, the sun and gold rule the heart and circulation and the distribution of bodily heat. Its herbal therapeutic uses are as a tonic, heating agent, anti-arthritic, and anti-ulcer. While no plants or herbs contain metallic gold, gold the metal is used to treat a variety of degenerative diseases, including cancer. The gold salt, disodium orothiomolate, is administered intramuscularly as a treatment for arthritis. Metallic gold solutions have been used to inhibit or prevent the pathogenic progression in rheumatoid arthritis that damages cartilage, bone, and other connective tissues. Gold is also thought to create a beneficial balancing and harmonizing effect on the heart, improving blood circulation, rejuvenating sluggish organs, especially the brain, and assisting the digestive system to function smoothly. In medical astrology, the sun rules the physical heart and the eyes as mirrors of the soul. The sun also controls the circulatory system and the central energy system of the spine. Because they carry the signature of the vitality principle on the cosmic level, solar herbs can be seemingly miraculous aid in cases of apathy, lethargy, and unproductivity. Solar herbs also heal inferiority complexes, bolstering people and giving them a sense of purpose beyond the norm. Several oils of gold are made by alchemists, although with any gold product, one should be aware of the extravagant claims sometimes made for it. Simple oil of gold is said to work for leukemia patients and most afflictions of the heart. It is also recommended for teenage growing pains, physical deformation, vertigo, and circulation problems. The red oil of gold was used as a circulation aid, heart tonic, blood purifier, regenerative of brain cells, and protector of bones and joints. It was used to treat rheumatism and arthritis, uremia and multiple sclerosis, to cure cancers and syphilis, increase vitality, and balance metabolism. Psychologically, it was even thought to cure a weak will, give ambition, restore courage, and increase creativity. The formula for making gold compounds tend to be very obscure and sometimes outlandish. For instance, the recipe for Dr. Anthony's famous aurum potable contains the following directive. Take the urine of a healthy man drinking wine moderately. Put it into a gourd which you must stop close, and set in horse dung for the space of 40 days. One inscrutable recipe for oil of gold calls for calcinated gold fused into colorful glass with special alchemical salts elaborated from a phosphoric principle and combined naturally with the universal spirit, which contains a corporified light or astral flame. When exposed several nights to the full moon, this glass dissolves by attraction into an oily thick paste. Pure colloidal gold, which has a royal purple hue, was first prepared in 1857 by the famed English scientist Michael Faraday, and many uses were found for the amazing solutions of activated gold. Historically, colloidal gold has been found useful in cases of glandular and nervous unbalance because it seems to help rejuvenate the glands and stimulate the nerves. Colloidal gold also helps regulate body temperature. Thoth's tips. If you want to ingest gold, make sure that the metal is at least 99.99% pure. Edible gold flakes are used in Chinese cooking and are sold in gourmet cooking stores. The German schnapps Geldschlager also contains gold flakes. Gold colloids also contain pure gold particles. In general, colloidal gold has a balancing and harmonizing effect on all levels of body, mind, and spirit. It is used to improve mental attitude and treat unstable mental and emotional states such as depression, melancholy, sorrow, fear, despair, anguish, frustration, suicidal tendencies, seasonal affective disorder, poor memory, poor concentration, and many other imbalances in mind and spirit. Because it works to balance mental extremes, it has unpredictable effects in people with bipolar or manic depressive disorders and is not recommended for their use. Colloidal gold has been shown to relieve attention deficit disorder and improve mental focus. In the 19th century, colloidal gold was commonly used in the United States to cure alcoholism, and today it is used to reduce dependencies on other compounds besides alcohol, such as caffeine, nicotine, and carbohydrates. According to many studies over the years, colloidal gold increases mental acuity and the ability to concentrate. The signatures of gold are invoked in rituals, magical spells, and talismans concerning solar deities, the male force, authority, self-confidence, creativity, financial riches, investments, fortune, hope, health, and worldly and magical power. Gold jewelry is said to improve self-confidence and inner strength. The least you need to know. The life force is an ingredient in alchemical preparations. Paracelsus introduced a form of hermetic medicine that incorporated many modern techniques. Each of the 7 metals of alchemy carries planetary signatures that can be used in healing. Colloids are permanent suspensions of minute metallic particles in water and have been used in healing for over a century. Chapter 22, Social Alchemy. In this chapter, Alchemy in the Everyday World, Alchemical Transformation of Relationships, Alchemical Transformation of the Workplace, Money as the First Matter of the Modern World. Social alchemy is the application of alchemical principles and operations in relationships and for the general welfare of society. Its aim is to take alchemy out of the exclusive fraternities and brotherhoods of secret initiation and put it into the public light. This general application of alchemical ideas to everyday life and situations is something medieval alchemists would not have expected and probably not approved of. For them, the principles of alchemy were too powerful to share publicly. But times have changed, and alchemy is the buzz in such diverse areas as business and finance, art and education, bureaucracies and government, personal development and the media, and in relationships and the workplace. The revolutionary ideas of social alchemy are inspiring many individuals to become seeds of gold in the world. And the new motto of alchemy is, to quote Gandhi, "Become the change you wish to see in the world." The alchemy of relationships. The first level of social alchemy is found in personal relationships. This application is based on the realization that the same alchemical processes that the alchemists observed in their laboratories are at work in the maturation of the individual person. Those same principles surface in relationships between individuals. Consequently, the inherent alchemical forces that build up between people can be harnessed to transform failing relationships into living, productive pairings in which both partners can grow into a unified whole that is often bigger than the sum of its parts. The opposing essences in relationships are what drive the alchemy between people. Often the mental or physical conjunction we are seeking with friends and lovers is a subconscious effort to complement our deepest essence and attempt to find our soulmate. Loved ones are mirrors of our own souls, reflecting unexpressed qualities that are within us but that we need to reclaim as our own. Unfortunately, maintaining the alchemical fires in a relationship is a full-time job. Through intimacy, we gradually realize that the other person is not the perfect embodiment of the soulmate that we had expected. Feelings get polluted, thoughts turn poisonous, and the relationship itself becomes toxic. At this point, the relationship can be saved and kept alive in only one way, and that is through the permanent purification and fundamental transformation offered by the operations of alchemy. Calcination in relationships. Starting with calcination, the elements of ego from which the poisons are being released must be exposed and burnt away in the fires of awareness. These poisons are made up of past judgments, unforgiven mistakes, pointless criticism, and endless complaining. Thos tips. You might want to review the operations of alchemy discussed in Part 3, Chapters 11 through 13. The symbolic, psychological, and laboratory correspondences of the operations I presented will give you a deeper understanding of the alchemy of relationships and how they can be transformed. The typical toxic reaction to these poisons is the formation of habits that tend to numb feelings and distance the partners from one another. Preoccupation with outside activities, partying with friends, consuming hobbies, drinking, and watching television are all possible escapes from facing the toxicity and removing it from the relationship. Poisons build up in any relationship just like they do within one's personality, and if they are not burnt away, they pollute the entire environment. Dissolution in relationships. Dissolution is a way to remove pollutants by assimilation. Tensions, contagious moods, and hurt feelings must be defused and dissolved before they take hold. And the little dramas and trumped up crises must be drowned in the waters of genuine caring before they take shape. Hardest of all to dissolve are patterns of emotional, sexual, and physical abuse that arise in many relationships. The effects of passive-aggressive tactics, such as the infamous silent treatment, are just as difficult to remove because these poisons eat deep into a partner's dignity and self-esteem. Sometimes, in order to save the relationship at all costs, total dissolution takes place as the partners completely surrender individual identities and take on the will and traits of the other. In alchemical terms, such as dissolved relationship is stillborn and can no longer be transformed. That is why it is so important to see the toxins as existing in the relationship and not in the individuals. The goal is to transform the relationship, not each other. For the opposing essences we share with one another is what fuels the entire relationship. Once these purified essences surface and are divided and identified in alchemical separation, they can be brought together in a new conjunction. For instance, one partner may have qualities of imagination and inventiveness, lacking in the other, while the other may have practical knowledge and a down-to-earth emotional base that grounds them both. Both partners realize that by validating the other, they support themselves. Then, in conjunction, the best of each partner is saved and united into a shared quintessence that offers new hope and promise for the couple. Fermentation in relationships. However, no matter how optimistic the conjunction, traces of past pain and ego invariably find their way into the newly formed and reoriented relationship. Putrefaction is a natural process that develops in the course of even the best relationships as each partner compromises, surrendering aspects of his or own personality for the survival of the couple. The black mood that sometimes results can cause an extinction of all interest in the relationship, and the partners must act to keep things alive at this stage, or they will slip back into a toxic relationship. At this point, fermentation is the only way of saving the pairing. Whether through the help of friends, a marriage counselor, the birth of a child, or starting up of a company, or shared meditation sessions, the individual essences in the relationship must be exposed to outside or even transcendental spiritual forces to introduce something completely new, genuine, or sacred into the relationship. By moving the focal point of the relationship from the mundane concerns of everyday survival to some higher ground, the relationship itself can be raised. Gradually, the partnership blooms, and one learns to trust what he sees in the mirror of the relationship and act on it. Thereby, the partners look within themselves, not only to their partners, for growth and transmutation. Distillation and relationships. In the ensuing distillation phase of rebuilding a relationship, both partners learn how to look past their own and each other's personality flaws to the beauty and innocence of individual essences. The objectivity required during distillation is what purifies and concentrates the energies of the relationship. The partners have finally moved past blame, shame, and games and have refined their relationship to the point where they are able to share hurt feelings without anger by reopening their hearts in mutual trust. In marriages, sexuality reaches a higher level in a true mixing of masculine and feminine essences that can lead to tantric enlightenment. Definition. Tantric refers to the concepts of Tantra, which is an Asian form of spiritual alchemy that is based on the idea that the universe we experience is the concrete manifestation of divine energy. The tantric practitioner attempts to channel that energy through rituals, contemplation, and secret sexual practices. Coagulation and relationships. In the final coagulation, the imposing forces in the relationship are balanced and solidified into a living third thing, the stone, from which each partner takes his or her due and grows stronger in its reflected energy. Every relationship seeks to build this third presence or stone, which allows each partner to keep his or her own identity while sharing in the traits and energies of the other. Psychologically, the stone is the solid footing experienced in a successful relationship or marriage, resulting in new confidence, creativity, and peace of mind for both partners. Creation of the alchemical stone in a relationship is the only way the toxins and pollutants of everyday life can be eliminated on an ongoing basis to prevent them from building up, to keep them from stifling and diverting the vital energies that keep any relationship alive. The Relationship Laboratory. To apply these alchemical principles to your own relationships, begin by taking a good, hard look at a deep relationship you have already shared with someone. Try to start with a relationship that is over and done so you might have a greater sense of objectivity that you can develop and apply to a present or future involvement with someone. Unfortunately, most contemporary people fail at keeping the fires burning in the Athanor, which can be viewed as the shared heart of the relationship. It doesn't help that the modern world is generally missing its opportunity to use the power of love to transform our lives, because we are kept busy thinking about so many other things. We simply have too much on our plates, too many responsibilities, too many products, and too much entertainment. However, if we look at the songs of the troubadours, the writings of the romanticists, or the poetry of the Sufi alchemists, we realize this was not always the case. Sometimes we have to stop and remind ourselves of the power of love in the world. In Sufism, alchemy is a creative and passionate journey with another person in which the love generated is the transformative tool. Rumi, a 13th century spiritual alchemist who lived in Persia, expressed this concept when he wrote, "Love is that flame which, when it blazes up, burns away everything except the beloved. There remains but God. The rest has gone. Bravo, O great idol-burning love." We must be brutally honest in our examining our relationships, because they contain important lessons whether or not they last. Analyze a past relationship without placing any blame on any one partner. Try to trace exactly what happened to dampen the fires, and why all the love exchanged at the beginning of the relationship was taken back by the end of it. Finally, trace the alchemical processes in the relationship in the order in which they occurred. What could have been done alchemically to rekindle the relationship or end it in a non-damaging way? In the following illustration, which is from the Splendor Solis series, we see an expression of the power of love to balance and deepen our experience of being alive in both our personal relationships and on the social or group level. Above in the heavenly realm is the archetype of love, Venus, riding in a chariot drawn by two lovebirds with Cupid at the reins. Below in the manifested world are scenes of people dancing, singing, playing games, and conversing, while in the privacy of the surrounding woods are couples embracing. At the center is a retort in which the peacock, symbol of fermentation and new life, spreads its feathers. Alchemy in the workplace. The next level of social alchemy is in the workplace. As an alchemist, your changing lead into gold mindset can perform miracles on all levels of everyday life, and your place of employment is the ideal place to start. The survival of the fittest basis of capitalism does not mean that you, as an alchemist, cannot work within the system and transform the workplace into a creative and nourishing environment. The truth is that companies that are run with integrity and creative freedom are faster to react and hardier in the long run than any organization based on greed and bureaucracy. As an alchemist, you should focus on the alchemical factors of joyful work, finding your life's purpose, creating spiritual products and franchises, liquidating cumbersome assets, developing conscious investing, and transforming the workplace. Also, examine your relationship with money and identify any hard feelings or jealousies associated with it. Your goal is to set up an alchemical relationship with both the workplace and the financial rewards it provides, just like the alchemist did with the metals, to manifest gold in your life and become fully alive whether you are at home or at work. Calcination in the workplace. The transformation of any organization begins with calcination, and the target of this fire is the dross, and unessential salts that form in companies. Much of the friction that fans the fire comes from ego, because ego is not a team player. It is constantly seeking control of all available resources, including energies that could be better applied to personal and organizational transformation. Calcination continues on the corporate level by focusing on methods that eliminate bureaucracy, the greater ego of the organization. Traditional bureaucratic structures take on a life of their own and soon become the identity of the whole organization. So the goal is to transform these entrenched bureaucracies into intelligent organizations that make full use of the energies and insights of all employees. Only companies with this type of freedom and sense of community can be reborn and survive for any time in the marketplace. Dissolution in the workplace. Overcoming egocentric control, whether in an individual's personality or in the bureaucracy of an organization, requires a decentralization of power and the creation of a free-flowing environment. The process of dissolution originates from a kind of creative interplay between worker and work that has long been ignored in modern corporations. But this process cannot take place unless the worker exerts some control over the outcome of her work. The goal is to show modern managers how to let go and recognize that the workers, not the system, make an organization soar to excellence. Dissolution continues on the management level by identifying those managers, departments, and processes that serve as bottlenecks to the creative flow of energy. Sometimes this requires establishing an independent team or accepting the input of a maverick manager who has the confidence and honesty to look at the workplace from a fresh viewpoint. Careful consideration is given to ensure that the bottlenecks are not vital checkpoints and can be eliminated without adversely affecting the organization. Separation in the workplace. Separation involves freeing the living essences isolated within the organization in the operations of calcination and dissolution. Successful calcination has freed the company's spirit, and dissolution has released its soul. Only by recognizing and isolating these two fundamental ingredients can the work of transformation proceed. In most companies, spirit is concentrated among managers and soul is concentrated among the workers. Indeed, employees' loyalty and their creative energy are the soul and lifeblood of a company. This vital energy can be increased in an organization by exercising the golden rule of management. Treat your people like you would like to be treated. Managers who are too busy or too proud to recognize jobs well done only sow the seeds of less productivity, and managers too insensitive to acknowledge employees' problems will themselves receive no sympathy. One practice that restricts the growth and balance of living essences in an organization is the traditional method of compensation, which is usually based on tenure and entitlement rather than performance. Over the years, employees build up a sort of internal equity just by being around for a long time, finding specialized niches in the organization, or getting to know their bosses on a social level. In most cases, such employees have become essential just by working there a long time and knowing their job well. In other cases, however, employees feel they do not have to contribute anymore and know the ropes well enough to get away with doing the minimum work. Alchemical pay practices attempt to form a positive partnership between employees and the performance of the organization for which they work. Employees should be rewarded in ways that reflect not only their own performance, but also their organization's overall success. Hiring and personnel practices should aim to balance the levels of soul and spirit in an organization. Right sizing, not blind downsizing, is the tool of the separation phase of corporate transformation. Conjunction in the workplace. Conjunction as a corporate operation attempts to balance the opposing essences of soul and spirit in an organization and redirect them toward a unified vision of success. Just as the alchemists tried to get the forces of spirit to descend and the forces of soul to ascend and materialize in the reality of the sacred marriage of essences, so the modern manager can work with these corresponding organizational realities. Within the individual manager and employee, spirit and soul combine to create a feeling intellect, which is the development of an intuitive attitude. In the organization, intuitive managers create an enlightened mission, which is the development of corporate vision. From The Alchemist. In her book Alchemy at Work, Cassandra Eason writes, "Intuitive powers can enable us to tune into the hidden needs and feelings of fellow workers, employers, and employees, thereby becoming aware by signals even deeper than nonverbal indicators of the right time to propose change or new ideas and the right time to hold back. We can empathize with others, sensing when to ease their workload and when we can push productivity ahead. In simplest terms, the new conjunctive vision is the articulation of the image, values, direction, and goals that will guide the future of the organization. This down to earth approach also involves ascertaining the capabilities of competing forces and identifying other environmental influences. Unfortunately, the new vision is just like any other corporate plan or goal at this stage. We must give it life to make it happen. Often, an erosion of energy occurs after the conjunction phase, which is something we all have experienced while working on a project. At this point, managers should focus on negative or challenging issues that may have been deliberately ignored or swept under the carpet. These are the hidden signatures, the concealed potential of things, events, and people that directly challenge the outcome of a project, but which we often ignore. Fermentation in the workplace. The aim of the fermentation phase of the transformation of a company is to teach managers and employees how to bring life to their work and their work to life. The first step in this process requires the acceptance that higher values do have place at work. Managers and employees must swallow their pride, forget personal ego, and open up to the insight and inspiration that others can offer. By denying that spirituality exists in the workplace, notes Wally Amos, founder of the famous Amos Cookie Company, we are denying the essence of who we are and the substance that helps us create success. Practical methods for achieving corporate fermentation begin by teaching the managerial alchemist how to achieve departmental goal agreement, give and receive feedback, deliver and digest tough messages, and have frank discussions about learning and development with subordinates. These critical skills are developed by applying practical methods of the on-the-level communication, in which discussions are characterized by directness, respect, shared responsibility, and purpose. The goal is to create a management culture that fosters the flow of relevant data, eliminates barriers to essential communication, and orchestrates the flow of information in order to make the correct decisions. Managers also need to learn how to contain the anxiety provoked by learning or new experiences, so they are able to question fundamental assumptions and engage in true dialogue that is part of the life-giving fermentation process. Personal development, meditation, consciousness raising, discussion, training, and experiential learning techniques are some of the methods a manager can use to develop a living awareness, which is his most valuable asset. The new kind of flexible awareness fosters group synergy, which is defined as new energy for the group itself that empowers the team and gives it identity. In fact, the real purpose of management is to tap into the magic of group synergy. The role of the alchemical manager is to interact with people in a way that cuts through barriers to energize and empower individuals to participate fully in their jobs. This kind of manager is a spiritual warrior who protects the group culture while at the same time cutting through unproductive or sabotaging patterns to get what enhances and fulfills the group purpose. Distillation in the workplace. Distillation in an organization involves inventing new ways to work smarter, not harder, by eliminating debilitating emotional barriers to productivity. For instance, worry or anxiety in the workplace environment depletes the life force of the organization. In many cases, worry is a perverted mental game we play to try to produce desired outcomes without working. We worry as a substitute for action. Some people worry to gain sympathy or acceptance, while others worry to brace themselves for anticipated pain. Many managers worry simply because they think it is their duty. The hidden connection between worry and indecision is what cripples the organization. Many managers are considered indecisive because they simply fail to take action, yet in truth, it's the other way around. Indecisiveness and worry cause the inaction, yet to take more action, one has to make more decisions. It's an endless loop of arrested consciousness. Managers must accept the essential chaos we are all faced with in trying to transform something. Sometimes it's necessary to make decisions with incomplete information just to get the ball rolling on a project. Later, as more facts become available, it may be possible to tailor the project to fit changing conditions. The acquisition of this confidence and professional attitude, based on the objective assessment of a situation, is the distillation of management. In fact, the process of distillation can be applied to all levels to purify the life force of the organization. Distillation overcomes barriers to productivity and unties emotional knots in individuals and the organization. Successful distillation means that both personal emotions and bureaucratic structures no longer interfere with creativity within the organization. From The Alchemist. Many people experience distillation as a state of consciousness known as flow, where concentration is so focused that one is totally absorbed in any activity at the peak of one's abilities, free of personal problems or any sense of time restriction. While such feelings are often associated with sports, music, or the arts, they also surface quite often in the business environment. One study of nearly 5,000 Americans showed that 3 times as many people experience flow while at work than at home. Coagulation in the workplace. The paradoxical yet triumphant fusion of opposing qualities is what the alchemists call the philosopher's stone, which is formed during the process of coagulation. For example, Sam Walton, the late founder of Walmart, the most profitable corporation in the world, embodied 3 paradoxes. Number 1, he was relentlessly focused on winning, yet he was totally flexible, willing to try anything and to drop whatever did not work without a second thought. Number 2, he was ingeniously creative, but always ready to copy anything that had worked for someone else. Number 3, he was one of the best motivators who ever lived, yet constantly checked up on everything anyone did. If all Walton had was a relentless drive to do things his way, he could have made all the common mistakes of any other entrepreneur, such as sticking with an idea long after it was no longer working or motivating people, only to have them scatter their energies in 1,000 different directions. The combination of Sam Walton's paradoxical traits made him unbeatable. The goal of coagulation is to create such paradoxical unions that are more powerful and durable than either component. This greater paradox is what the alchemists saw as the union of fire and water, or the fusion of masculine and feminine ways of knowing. Such paradoxical thinking generates unusual viewpoints, leading to a broader-based understanding of the true nature of a particular problem or opportunity. The key to high levels of performance and dealing effectively with problematic situations is to consciously use all sides of one's core paradoxes at once. For the modern manager, this is an alchemical trick well worth learning. This type of thinking sometimes produces moments when things come together in an almost unbelievable way, when events that could never have been predicted seem to conspire to help us reach our goals. Psychologist Carl Jung named this ability synchronicity, which he defined as meaningful coincidences or significant patterns of chance that seem to align with our own thoughts or contribute to our progress toward reaching goals. In quantum mechanics, reality has been defined as a collection of intermediate states in a network of interactions. The same definition applies to the modern business environment. The only way of organizing this chaos is in how we interpret the relationships between the individual components of the network. In alchemistic management, the leaders of the organization are not tied to a specific behavior or set response, but are alive and responsive enough to focus on the changing relationships between people, events, and positive and negative influences throughout the organization. Transforming the workplace. So, to put it all together, the alchemical transformation of a company or organization follows the same operations that alchemists use to transform any substance. The alchemical formula consists of 7 operations, which are usually performed consecutively, but may in fact be performed in any order depending on the situation. These operations are Number 1, calcination, an operation of fire in which artificial structures, blind habits, and bureaucracy are burnt away. Number 2, dissolution, a cooling off period that dissolves the ashes of the previous operation, making the situation fluid. Number 3, separation, a filtering process to find the essential ingredients, i.e., personnel and markets needed for survival. Number 4, conjunction, the recombination of the saved elements from previous operations to bring it all together. Number 5, fermentation, seeking outside inspiration through retraining employees or an infusion of new talent. Number 6, distillation, new objectivity and goal setting that raises the entire organization above past greed, feuding, and personal transgressions. Number 7, coagulation, integrating and revivifying the organization to make it all happen. Using these methods in a combined effort by managers and employees, which are the spirit and soul of an organization, can transform the workplace through the initial throes of resistance to its crowning rebirth as a new entity, in which essential participants working together in an integrated, focused, living, and highly adaptable team for the mutual benefit of everyone. Wealth, the first matter in society. The most important stage of social transformation begins, as it did amongst the alchemists, with the search and accumulation of the first matter. In alchemy, the first matter is that amorphous, chaotic, potential energy that is shaped into something physically real by the focusing of mind or consciousness. In the modern cultural climate, nothing fits the description of first matter better than the vitriolic green stuff that is the almighty dollar. The great and undifferentiated potential of money is what turns our dreams and images into concrete reality. Tread carefully. Talking about money may seem materialistic, but there's nothing inherently evil or unspiritual about money. Like the first matter, the chaotic and impartial substance of money can be used for good or evil. When accumulated with avarice and greed, money takes on the attitude of its possessor and becomes a force of lies and evil doing, as it has in many unscrupulous corporations. But when accumulated with compassion and understanding, money can become a source of spiritual power, whether in an individual's life, in a business, or in society. Freedom is the hermetic basis of capitalism and the basis of the founding principles of America as developed by the Freemasons. The idea of freedom not only applies to individuals, but to markets as well. Prices should be free to fluctuate through the natural pressures of supply and demand. Anyone should be able to start a business, and competition and innovation should be encouraged. These precepts create an extremely alchemical environment. Money is simply a form of social power and transformation. If money is the agent of transformation in the everyday world, then the first matter of money is a vital principle in every alchemist's life. It makes no sense to disenfranchise ourselves from the accumulation of money because we feel spiritual, as long as we work to accumulate wealth in an alchemical way without doing harm to others. Actually, we do not have to be wealthy to have wealth. Simply not spending, not consuming, not overindulging, and being satisfied with what we have can dramatically increase effective wealth. Furthermore, accumulating money offers practical training in the application of alchemical principles in the real world. The fact is that money makes us free to pursue alchemy. The medieval alchemists had patrons and benefactors to support their work, but that is no longer the case. Sometimes a little mercuric sorcery is required just to survive on a day-to-day basis. As social commentator George Bernard Shaw demonstrated in his plays, the poor are uncultured and unrefined because they lack money, not because something is lacking within them. The problem is that they do not have the resources to gain the freedom to pursue transformation. The same situation was true of every alchemist, whose first steps in transformation were always toward freedom and independence in the world in order to focus on the great work. So money, although much misunderstood in our culture, can be a vehicle for personal and social transformation. But alchemically, the personal relationships we have to money determines how it functions in our lives. Many of us have wounds around money that keep us stuck and prevent money from flowing naturally through our life. We must keep in mind that money, as the first matter, can manifest as energy, security, intention, clarity, commitment, and vision, enabling the highest aspirations and ideals. The least you need to know. We can apply the principles of alchemy to personal and social relationships of all kind. We should adapt the sequence of operations in alchemy as the requirements of the situation demand. The goal of alchemical transformation in society is to make our relationships real and living. We can view money as the first matter of modern civilization. Chapter 23, The Science of Magic. In this chapter, future science and magic, the mysterious properties of light, the new alchemy of quantum physics, 20th century scientists/alchemists, alchemical projection of consciousness, the natural alchemy of evolution. Alchemy is a spiritual technology that merges the methods of science in the physical realm with the Hermetic teachings of the spiritual realm. Alchemists have developed theories, distinct operations, and unique equipment designed to work with spiritual energies. As an ancient science of soul, alchemy seeks to reveal the essences of time and space that are the fundamental truths of the universe. Modern science, in its search for a grand, unified theory of the universe, seeks the same things as the alchemists. With advances in quantum physics that incorporate the powers of consciousness in the fabric of the cosmos, alchemy and science are becoming more and more alike in their theoretical foundations. Magic, too, has evolved along these same lines. Of course, I'm not talking about the tricks of stage magicians, but rather referring to the ancient tradition of magic, sometimes called magic with a K, that developed from the Hermetic teachings. In this tradition, the focus of consciousness in will and intention is the force that transforms reality. With the development of chaos magic in the last 50 years, the theories of magic approach the same theoretical basis as alchemy and modern science. Chaos magic emphasizes the power of the consciousness of the practitioner as opposed to the invocation of the elemental forces or spiritual energies. Developed in England in the 1970s, the discipline teaches that both subjective experience and physical reality can be changed through a highly focused mind. A key belief in chaos magic is that there is no such thing as an objective truth outside of our perception, and therefore all things are true and possible. This mercurial mindset is very empowering, and the philosophy behind chaos magic is very alchemical. The basic technique in chaos magic is the development of a highly purified state of one-pointed concentration known as the Gnostic state. A single thought experienced in the Gnostic state is quickly released or forgotten and sent to the subconscious mind, where it is enacted into reality through unknown means. As we have seen, the chaotic subconscious mind is very much like the first matter of the alchemists, and as such is the source of all creation on all levels. The science of the future. It has been noted that any future science will be indistinguishable from magic to those of our present time. This is exactly what is happening in alchemy. The ancient traditions of alchemy and magic are merging with modern science in a greater discipline that recognizes the mystery inherent in the universe and acknowledges that consciousness is a force in nature. The new alchemy has become the science of magic. Early Hermetic writings remain some of the oldest and most sacred texts ever written, and throughout history, the Hermetic teachings have influenced visionary philosophers and scientists. The secret truths of ancient Hermetic philosophy and the evolving perspectives of modern psychology and physics validate alchemy as a true means of understanding the workings of the universe. Alchemy is a truly unique discipline that combines science and religion and attempts to work on all levels of reality at once. Of course, some proponents have always wanted to keep science a purely material discipline and alchemy a purely spiritual discipline. However, this approach weakens both disciplines. Certainly, for alchemy, there can be no separation of spiritual and practical work, because their combination is the basis of the craft. From The Alchemist. In his book, The Philosopher's Stone, philosopher Israel Regardie, a highly respected author of many books on the magical tradition and an active member of the Golden Dawn, documented his belief that alchemy was strictly a spiritual and psychological tradition that had no connection with the laboratory work of the medieval alchemists. However, after being initiated into alchemy and learning the laboratory work, he recanted his earlier view and admitted that both the practical and spiritual methods of alchemy were rooted in the same laws of nature and complemented each other. Science can be seen as a more modern, secularized version of alchemy. The Egyptian origins of alchemy come from a time when there was no difference between science and religion, when there was just one true philosophy for the whole world. The Hermetic tradition attempts to hold true to that perennial philosophy and preserve the essential mystery of creation, while science seeks to eliminate it. In that respect, we can only hope that the magic of today becomes the science of tomorrow. The major criticism alchemists have of the scientific method is that it is based on argumentative instead of intuitive methods, and that the search for truth gets sidetracked in arguing about the details. For alchemists, true science is knowledge of nature acquired slowly by meditation. Sciences are acquired only by study, by meditation, and not by dispute, said the alchemist monk Antoine Joseph Pernody. Learn a little at a time. Repeat often the same study. The mind can do all when concentrated upon one sole thing, but nothing when trying to embrace too many. The mystical nature of light. The common catalyst that seems to dissolve the boundaries of alchemy, magic, and science is light. Whenever alchemists, magicians, or scientists talk about the nature of light, it seems they are talking about the same thing. Early theories of light. In ancient India, light was considered a subtle element out of which emerged the gross elements of creation. According to texts dating back to 500 BCE, light consists of particles of energy that make up all matter. Indian theorists knew that the sun was at the center of the galaxy, and that the moon and planets shined by reflecting the light of the sun. They also knew that white light was composed of colors that they called the 7 rays of the sun. About this same time, the Greek philosopher Empedocles postulated his theory of the 4 elements that viewed light as fire traveling at high speed. This fire was carried in humans and shone out of their eyes, making sight possible. Around 300 BCE, Euclid wrote Optica, which was the first scientific study of light. He described the laws of reflection mathematically and postulated that light traveled in straight lines. In his book of Optics, the Arabian alchemist Al-Hazen disputed the idea that light originated from the eyes and said instead that it was caused by light rays emitted from the sun or lamps that struck the eyes. He theorized that light was streams of minute particles that traveled at a very high but finite speed. He described the laws of refraction, or how light behaves in a lens, and also invented a primitive camera. The alchemical rebus. French philosopher René Descartes believed that light traveled in the unseen plenum, which was the subtle substance or etheric first matter of which the universe was composed. He demonstrated that light behaved like a wave and concluded that refraction could be explained by the varying speed of light in different media. As a result, Descartes is considered the father of the wave theory of light. Alchemist Isaac Newton promoted the particle theory of light when he postulated that light was composed of corpuscles of matter emitted from a light source in all directions at once. Newton published these ideas in his book Optics in 1704. Actually, Newton's alchemical studies suggested that light might exist in two states at once, as both wave energy and particle matter, although the idea seemed too controversial for his time. The changing of bodies into light and light into bodies, noted Newton, is very comfortable to the course of nature, which seems delighted with transmutations. Newton's intuition told him that light was the alchemical rebus, the double-headed thing that showed two opposite faces to the world. For thousands of years, alchemists had associated light with Mercury, the paradoxical rebus. For alchemists, Mercury was light in all its forms, the light of the heavens, the light of our fires, and the light of our imagination and consciousness. In the following figure, we see a painting from the Splendor Solis series of the rebus toward the end of the work. The rebus was first created as the child of the philosophers during the conjunction of the white phase, then entered rebirth on a higher level during fermentation, and finally empowered as an independent body during distillation and coagulation during the red phase. The white and red wings signify that these processes are complete. The mirror globe held by the rebus is the philosopher's stone, the magical touchstone of the alchemists. The shining mirror globe is also a symbol of the light of consciousness and its reflective nature. In other words, the light of consciousness is the philosopher's stone. Newton was correct in his assumption that the world was not ready for an alchemical theory of light. Endless quibbling over the nature of light dominated physics for the next century. Dozens of experiments that demonstrated the wave nature of light challenged Newton's corpuscular theory. Finally, in the 19th century, James Clerk Maxwell developed a mathematical theory of electromagnetic radiation that included light, and numerous experiments verified his work. The wave theory was accurate at explaining most optical and electromagnetic phenomena, but a few troubling anomalies remained that could not be accounted for. One of these was the speed of light, 186,282 miles per second in a vacuum, which could not be deduced from Maxwell's equations. Another problem was that the wave theory failed to explain the levels of electricity produced by the photoelectric effect, in which light striking a metal surface generated an electrical current. Still, another problem was known as the ultraviolet catastrophe, in which the spectrum of energy emitted by black bodies or thermal radiators could not be accounted for. Wave theory also had a hard time explaining light pressure, or the way light pushes objects in a vacuum. Finally, in 1905, Einstein resolved these problems by returning to Newton's suspicion that light existed as both matter and energy. Einstein combined the wave and particle theories of light in a wavical concept in which photons exhibit wave-particle duality. His theory stated that everything has both a particle nature and a wave nature, and various experiments can be done to bring out one or the other. In other words, the nature of light, or which face the rebus shows the world, is determined by the conscious choice of the human observer as to which experiment to use in studying light. Some experiments prove the wave or energetic nature of light, while other experiments prove the particle or material nature of light. Quantum alchemy. Einstein's work and that of other physicists, including Max Planck, Louis de Broglie, and Richard Feynman, led to the development of a very alchemical new science called quantum physics. The basic premise of quantum physics is that reality is made up of quanta, or packets of energy from which matter originates. In effect, the efforts of physicists to understand light led to the creation of quantum physics, which is the most comprehensive and accurate theory ever formulated to explain natural phenomena. The power of quantum physics led to its acceptance by many reluctant physicists. The notion of wave-particle duality was extended to include the electron and electromagnetic phenomena. According to the field of quantum electrodynamics, when electrons are excited, packets of quanta are released as electromagnetic radiation. These packets of energy or quanta act the same way as a ball hitting a wall, but are in fact packets of solidified energy. Thoth's tips. 2 books by Gary Moring are excellent introductions to quantum alchemy. The Complete Idiot's Guide to Understanding Einstein contains a section on alchemy, and The Complete Idiot's Guide to Theories of the Universe elaborates on the dual nature of light and other topics I cover in this chapter. Modern physicists have also discovered that every fundamental particle of matter has a shadow energy or force carrier particle, and every energy carrier particle has a shadow matter particle. This relationship between matter particles and energy carriers is called supersymmetry. The most startling revelation of modern quantum theory is another alchemical principle that states the origin of the physical world is in spirit or light and energy. Matter does not exist of itself in the universe, but emerges from a quantum foam or first matter. Atomic particles, which are the basis of all matter, are created out of the underlying strings of pure, wild energy that condense into physical reality. Even the movement of particles of matter is not what it seems. Particles move in quantum jumps in which they disappear from reality and reappear in another position. The discontinuous motion of atomic particles gets so weird that completely imaginary components must be invented to describe their movement. It's hard for us to accept such an alchemical explanation of nature, but our mechanistic concept of reality is completely false and has polluted all our thinking and beliefs. No scientific experiment in the history of physics has ever shown that hard material particles exist or can even move. However, now hundreds of experiments prove material particles move by being teletransported through time, disappearing from one place to appear in another place without moving along a continuous path. Contrary to what our sense makes us believe, the world is not solid and fixed, but is constantly being created out of chaotic, formless, invisible quantum foam that is guided by the conscious expectation of what is there. And this is a more perfect description of the first matter than any alchemist could ever conceive. Whether the conscious expectation that creates reality comes from our minds or the divine mind that alchemists called mind the maker is still open to debate in modern physics. For alchemists, however, the divine light of mind, the same light we share in purified consciousness, and the true imagination is the fundamental force and ultimate source of creation. 20th century alchemists of science. In many ways, the insight of quantum physics have humbled modern scientists and forced them to accept an alchemical viewpoint of the universe. The days of the coldly objective and mechanistic search for truth have given way to a gentler science in which human intuition is an important tool. Albert Einstein, 1879 to 1955. Albert Einstein was the epitome of the scientist alchemist and never lost sight of the fundamental mystery of the universe. In 1905, he resolved problems in explaining the speed of light by revising the 17th century model of space and time to account for the constancy of the speed of light. Einstein formulated his ideas in his special theory of relativity, in which the fundamental constants of nature are relative to the conscious awareness of the observer. It is one of the most alchemical treatises of nature ever written. Einstein also proved an ancient tenet of alchemy that was previously unknown in physics, the fundamental equivalence between energy and matter in relation to light. His revolutionary equation of the universe is E equals mc squared, where E is energy, m is mass, and c is the speed of light. As noted in Chapter 8, this theorem is a restatement of the three forces of the alchemists in which sulfur is energy, salt is mass or matter, and mercury represents light. When Werner Heisenberg, while still a brash and aggressive young physicist, came to Einstein for advice, Einstein told him to beware of being too sure of the power of logic alone. Instead, Einstein told him to use his intuition and allow the object of his work, his theory, to speak to him, and let it suggest where he should look and what was of importance in nature. Werner Heisenberg, 1901 to 1976. As fate would have it, the overly logical Heisenberg became the one physicist to show that exact measurement and precise logical knowledge in physics is not possible. In 1927, Heisenberg proved that the more precisely the position of an atomic particle is determined, the less precisely its momentum is known, and vice versa. More generally, the act of measuring one magnitude of a particle, whether its mass, its velocity, or its position, causes the other magnitudes to blur. It is not that we do not have precise enough instruments to measure the magnitudes of some atomic particles. The blurring of exact knowledge of a single particle of matter is a fundamental property of nature. This startling defeat for empirical measurement became known as the Heisenberg uncertainty principle and is now a basic tenet of quantum physics. In quantum physics, the observer is no longer external and neutral to the experiment, but becomes part of it, just as the alchemists believed. The outcome of an experiment depends on the view of the person doing the experiment. This concept was extremely unsettling to scientists. It meant that the facts of nature are no longer objectively verifiable and mathematically treatable, and it suggested that the scientific method would never be able to grasp complete and ultimate knowledge of the universe. Barbara McClintock, 1902 to 1992. The new scientist alchemist is epitomized by the work of geneticist Barbara McClintock, who won the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 1983 for her many important breakthroughs, including the discovery of so-called jumping genes. McClintock devoted her life and all her attention to understanding just one thing, maize. She tried and succeeded in becoming one with her work and discovered the whole universe in an ear of corn. Working like a true alchemist, she identified completely with the substance of her work and connected with the inner life of maize. Truth, she said, has a mystical origin both inside and outside myself. Thoth's tips. Quantum physicist Fred Alan Wolf has introduced what he calls the new alchemy, which is a melding of the ideas of the old alchemists and the new scientists to reach a fuller understanding of the connection between mind and matter. Dr. Wolf has written many books on quantum alchemy, including The Spiritual Universe, Mind into Matter, and Matter into Feeling. You can download free copies of his articles explaining quantum alchemy from www.fredalanwolf.com/page2.htm. David Bohm, 1917 to 1992. Another example of the scientist alchemist is nuclear physicist David Bohm, who developed the ontological interpretation of quantum mechanics in which mind and matter are viewed as opposite polarities in the universe. He demonstrated that electrons possess a proto-mind, or primitive intelligence, that seems to read active information in experiments. Bohm believed mind had been present in the cosmos from the beginning and was part of the fabric of creation. He also introduced the notion of the implicate order, which is the ground or undivided wholeness of the one mind of the universe from which the manifested world, which he called the explicit order, emerges. Bohm also believed in the alchemical principle of as above, so below. Because we are created of the same matter and in the same way as the whole universe, the truths of the cosmos should be within us. In quiet meditation, Bohm listened to his body and translated sensations of movement and tension into mathematical formula that provided insights into problems of physics he was working on. Bohm believed that consciousness and the physical brain itself could be transformed by contact with the greater mind of the universe. Wolfgang Pauli, 1900 to 1958. One of the greatest scientist alchemists of the 20th century was Austrian physicist Wolfgang Pauli, who is considered a founder of quantum physics. Pauli was an intellectual perfectionist who urged his colleagues to seek deeper truths and became known as the conscience of physics. Pauli was so impressed by the alchemical work of Carl Jung that he sought him out and began a collaboration to mathematically prove the effect of consciousness on matter. Pauli was convinced of the effects of mind over matter through his own personal experiences. In fact, the Pauli effect in physics is when experimental equipment breaks down because of the conscious anticipation of the participants. Pauli had the bizarre ability to disable scientific equipment when he was in the vicinity and delighted in tormenting his fellow physicists with his inexplicable talent. Pauli came to understand that nature can never be completely reduced to a rigid logic, and researchers must always allow for the unpredictable, the unknowable, and the irrational. He felt that the goal of physics and the great work of alchemy was the same: to unite mind and matter. He wanted to resurrect the spirit in matter through the inner working of matter and consciousness within the hermetically sealed alchemical vessel. He spent his life working on the unified field theory, in which all the forces of the universe would be explained by one grand theory. He included consciousness as one of the unexplainable forces of nature, and hoped to prove it to his colleagues. Pauli died of cancer in 1958 before he was able to finish his work, and it has been suggested that he died from the Pauli effect on his own body, which had become the crucial piece of equipment in his grand experiment. Physicist David Peat commented that Pauli has successfully sealed the forces of matter and spirit into the alchemical vessel, but was never able to generate the transforming heat of love to complete the transformation. That indispensable heat of transformation comes from the secret fire within the alchemist himself. Indeed, a colleague of Pauli once noted that the element of eros was missing from Pauli's life. The Philosopher's Stone of Physics. The grand unified theory that Wolfgang Pauli was working on is now the Philosopher's Stone of science. It is the one theory of everything that will give human beings unprecedented control over forces of nature. Physicists have already accomplished the dream of medieval alchemists to change lead into gold. It was relatively easy. In a small particle bombardment vessel in 1965, physicists succeeded in transforming an unstable isotope of lead into a small amount of molecular gold. Physicists might even have captured the elusive first matter of the alchemists. At the relativistic heavy ion collider at Brookhaven National Laboratory, an experiment was performed to try to reproduce the state of matter in the first microseconds after the Big Bang, when the universe was created. Electrically charged gold atoms were accelerated to close to the speed of light and then smashed together. What the equations predicted was a hot gas made up of quarks and gluons, the primary components of atoms. Surprisingly, what was created was much like the first matter. Instead of gas, they produced a primordial liquid of perfect consistency, such that any part was just like any other part. It was made up of pure energy that was 150 times hotter than the sun. The quantum level of reality can be considered more subtle or more spiritual than the gross physical level at which we all live. Yet somehow the alchemists knew that consciousness was the tool through which man could access the invisible level underneath our everyday reality. Like a modern quantum physicist, the alchemist is always looking for the most subtle level of reality, the deepest underlying pattern that explains physical reality. Alchemy, magic, and modern science are slowly converging on the realization that mind is a force in nature, and its purification and perfection are the philosopher's stone. Whether the perfection of consciousness is described as the magical touchstone of the alchemists, the power of focused intention of the magicians, or the grand unified theory of the physicists really does not matter. We are ultimately talking about the same thing, the power of mind or spirit over matter. The projection of consciousness. The real power of the philosopher's stone was to project perfection into matter, to bring any substance into alignment with the ideal mental image of what it should be. This is how the philosopher's stone worked, how it healed and perfected anything. At this point, we might be able to draw on the combined efforts of alchemists, magicians, and scientists to develop a workable method of projection. From The Alchemist. The great work is, above all things, the creation of man by himself, said the Hermetic scholar Eliphas Levi in his book Transcendental Magic. That is to say, the full and entire conquest of his faculties and his future It is especially the perfect emancipation of his will, assuring full power of the universal magical agent. This agent, disguised by the ancient philosophers under the name of the first matter, determines the forms of modifiable substance, and we can really arrive by means of it at metallic transmutation and the universal medicine. Actually, alchemists refer to the conscious projection or manifestation of desires as chemicalization, although it has nothing to do with chemicals. It is the alchemist who has changed or chemicalized. The term refers to the use of certain methods to condense one's spiritual powers into external chemicals that can react and have an effect in the real world. The steps in this psycho-spiritual process are: number 1, sealing. The first step in this process is to try to isolate the relevant essences and primal energies and seal them in the vessel of transformation. The vessel, of course, is one's own mind, which must be purified of distractions and outside influences. The work here is in the inner laboratory, and it may take some effort to connect with the archetypal essences of the situation or desire. They must be identified as separate chemicals with their own identities and properties. Number 2, agitation. This is the process of stirring up the energies or bringing them to life in the sealed vessel. It involves visualizations and guided imagery designed to encourage the trapped essences to express and release their archetypal energies. Combustion. Number 3. Having released the volatile inner vapors, they are now set afire with forceful and focused intention. You want to turn up the fire to gain control and direct the energy. It is a time of chaos and inflammation, of unrelenting intrusion of your intention into the vessel. It is the aggressive application of your will over the lesser powers trapped in the vessel. There may even be some negative counter energy that escapes from the vessel into your environment, which is something to watch out for. Number 4, withdrawal. The fires of will are abruptly withdrawn and the aggressive focusing of the fires of consciousness is turned off. Total silence without thoughts or emotions must prevail. The essences in the vessel are now cooking in their own heat, digesting in their own juices. There may be a black period of doubt or depression within you, but this is part of the process. To succeed, you must let go without losing interest. Number 5, manifestation. Slowly, the original desire begins to reappear in your life, but you must not rush it or want it too badly. Never talk about it or share the experience with others at this stage. Enthusiasm must be contained. Let the desire gain power slowly. Allow the energy to congeal on its own. This is the pregnancy of your intention, and it must have time to mature in the darkness. Soon, perhaps unexpectedly, your desire will manifest into reality. The process of projection and manifestation is difficult to master because it requires a lot of inner work and the intense development of willpower, the true imagination, and the inner secret fire. You must give of yourself, for you, too, are an ingredient in the process of manifestation. Once you are able to demonstrate the desire in the world, the ordeal becomes easier. The alchemy of evolution. The alchemist's idea of the mind of nature is very similar to our modern notion of evolution. Over time, nature seems to be perfecting itself. It may take millions of years, but eventually a species transforms itself in response to some great need, and a new species, more able to survive in the world, comes into existence. The great work of alchemy has always been to find ways to speed up this natural process of perfection. In the words of the modern French alchemist Jean Dubuis, alchemy is the art of manipulating life and consciousness in matter to help it evolve or to solve problems of inner disharmonies. Alchemy seeks transformation not by mechanically forcing nature to do its will, but rather by encouraging certain latent patterns to come alive and grow. The alchemists viewed the growth of minerals, plants, animals, or the evolution of whole species as alchemical processes going on in the laboratory of nature. Indeed, for the alchemist, all matter is alive and has the potential for growth and change. The alchemist believes that everything carries the energetic seed or pattern of its own perfection, and it was the job of the alchemist to resurrect these essences of perfection that are trapped in matter, to bring them to light and allow their full expression in time and space. Alchemists see the guiding pattern of perfection as an inner spirit that exists in all matter, from a dull gray lamp of lead to a living human being. The alchemist's task, therefore, is to speed up nature's work by perfecting substances in the laboratory. Such artificial transmutations by the alchemists were believed to encourage the overall pattern of transformation on our planet and contribute to the evolution of everything, including human beings. From The Alchemist. The long work is always nature's, noted the French alchemist Antoine Joseph Pernody. She works simply, by degrees, and always by the same means to produce the same result. The work of art is shorter. It outstrips nature. The work of God is done in an instant. Alchemy, properly speaking, is an operation of nature, aided by art. It places in our hands the key of natural magic or physics. What makes humans different from ordinary matter is that we can consciously participate in our own process of perfection. In fact, we all participate in alchemy whether we know it or not. We can proceed as alchemists and try to intentionally manifest our perfected nature, or we can spend our lives or lifetimes unconsciously cycling through worldly experiences that finally bring inner spiritual resources to the surface. According to this deeper tradition, the goal of alchemy is hastened perfection in the highest sense, the divinization of matter and of human beings. The least you need to know. The viewpoints of alchemy, magic, and modern science are slowly converging on a unified view of nature. The nature of light comprises contradictory states that the alchemist attributed to the mercurial rebus. The theories of quantum mechanics acknowledge the role of consciousness as an additional force in nature. An individual can learn the projection of consciousness to manifest desires in a process called chemicalization. The evolution of life can be seen as the alchemical perfection of nature. Alrighty, that sums up my narration of The Complete Idiot's Guide to Alchemy by Dennis William Hauck. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to listen to this narration, and I hope you learned some cool things. In the description below, I will leave a link to some free courses on alchemy that you can take on your phone, just audio recordings. So if you're interested in that, check out the description below. Otherwise, I'll be back for my next narration. Thanks again. Bye-bye.